part we're going to talk about is the most important part of the robot, the controller. The real controller has an on button and a touch screen. So once you turn it on, you can access the menu just by clicking it. Of course, we'll go more in depth after that. Now just turn it off. And then as you can see, there are slots behind and on the sides of the controller. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 behind, so there's a total of 6 slots. So the rero construction set actually uses a slide and snap mechanism to construct the robot, so that you don't need to use screws or screwdriver when you build a robot. I'll show you what that means after I introduce more parts, so I can build something simple for you to see. Now, the next most important part would be the motor, or here the name would be the cube servo. Cube servo is the shape of a cube, and then what characterizes it is that it has 2 wires protruding from the sides. One is a male connector and the other is a female connector. So the male connectors need to connect to the female connectors and so on. So you can actually connect the motors together and then onto the controller. So another thing that characterizes the cube servo is the output connect. This one is the output connect. So when the motor turns, this is the part that turns. So as you can see on the output connect, there's a yellow arrow. This yellow arrow indicates where the parts need to slide in when you slide and snap the parts together. So I'll take another cube servo to show you. So let's say you want to connect this servo onto this servo. So you can see a slot here. Just make sure that the arrow is in this direction, and then you slide it. You can hear the snap sound. Then it is connected together. So when this motor turns, this motor will turn like this. Okay. So what if you want to dismantle this? You need to use the opener. So as said before in the previous video, the opener isn't actually a part of the robot. It's actually a tool for you to use to pull the parts out. So let's say you can see the latch here. This latch is responsible for holding the parts together. If you want to dismantle the parts, you need to push it in. You push the latch down so it won't be blocking the part anymore, then you can just pull it out. Just like this. Okay. So this is the slot and snap mechanism. So it's the same goes for all the slots. So here on the controller we have this black slot, this black ledge to block the parts. So if you want to take out part from this slot, you also need to use the opener. The next part I'm going to talk about is the connectors. This is the interconnect, and then this is the rotatable connector. Although they may look the same on this side, on the other side you can see that there's a round thing here. So this is a rotatable connect. You can rotate, you see you can turn, and then this one cannot. This one is solid. So you use these two very frequently because this one is an interconnect. So what it does is it connects the parts together. So this example is that, let's say I want to connect these two together, but not in this manner. I can use the interconnect. You can slide into a slot, same thing. Then I will have access to allow this cube servo to connect to this servo like this. So you can form a structure that is very firm, so you can't turn it or anything. Then if you want to pull it out, it's the same thing, just use the opener, push it and then pull it out. Same thing. So what if I use a rotatable connector? The outcome would be similar, but as you can see, you can turn it. So you can use these two separately. You use these two based on the situation. So maybe you want a part that can turn, maybe you want the structure that's firm, you can just choose based on the situation. So now that I've shown you how to connect motors to the cube servo to another cube servo, I'll just show you how to connect the cube servos onto the controller. Whenever you want to connect something onto the controller, you need these 3 parts. This is the adapter joint, and then these two are called spacers. So as you can see, there are a lot of slots on the controller, but you cannot slide the interconnects into the slot because the size isn't correct. What you have to do is you have to use the adapter joints. So let's say you slide adapter joints in. Then you see there's a slot here where you can slide the interconnects in. This is how you connect parts onto the controller. You have to remember this and avoid from sliding interconnects because it will get stuck and it will be really hard to pull it out. So I just do this. So you can see that the adapter joint is sliding around. So if you want to make it stay in place, you have to use the spacers. So just slide in the spacers. The spacer doesn't have much. You cannot connect anything on the spacer, but it's just here to make sure that the adapter joint doesn't slide around. So let's say connect another double spacer. This is called double spacer because it has 2 slots. You can see it cannot fit another double spacer. This is where you use the single spacer. So if I put it like this, you see that the adapter joint won't move anymore because all the room has been used up by the spacers. So in a similar manner, you can also put in more than one adapter joints in one slot. So I just put this spacer here, and then take another adapter joint. So with this I can build something like the legs of the robot. Maybe I have 2 legs, something like that. So slide in, it's the same thing as before. Slide the servo in. This is just an example of how you can connect parts to the controller. So just remember to always use the adapter joint. Do not slide the interconnect or the rotatable connect into the slots on the controller. Now we're going to talk about how to use the U-joints. So this is the normal U-joint. So the U-joints are important when you're trying to build the limb of a robot. So this is how you use it. You need to use a servo. Then normally you would put a rotatable connect on the opposite side of the upper connect. So it's over here, the opposite side. So there will be this. So here we have the upper connect and here we have the rotatable connect. Only then you slide in the U-joint, because remember to follow the yellow arrow. The action of the yellow arrow and slide in. So here you have the U-joint. You can see if the upper connect turns, the U-joint will turn. So it's something like a joint for the robot. So let us say I make another one. So here's another one. So I can put an interconnect here and connect them together. So here I put something like a joint. Maybe it can be an elbow of a robot or anything. So here's how you use the U-joints. Of course, you can do it the same with the long U-joint, which is a longer counterpart of the U-joint. So you can make longer joints or anything you like. Of course, there's another joint I'd like to talk about is the wide U-joint. You can see it's wider. So normally for one U-joint, you can only fit in 1 cube servo. But if you use a wide U-joint, you can fit 2 cube servos inside. So I'll show you an example of how to use the wide U-joint. First, to take interconnect, slide on the opposite side, the upper connect, then slide in another one, cube servos, in this manner. And then on this side, opposite the upper connect, this side put another rotatable connector. So this way, when you slide in two cube servos like this, so you can do something like an axis. So this part can turn. Then if I connect something here, then you can take something like a cube joint, then you can connect it here, following the red and following the yellow arrow. So here you have something like this. So you can turn in this direction and also turn in this direction. So you can do something like an axis so that the robot can have more degrees of freedom. Now I'd like to talk about the sensors. So this is the head module. It actually has a sensor inside. It has an IR sensor and also a mic sensors. Then here we have an ultrasonic sensor and the IR sensor. So these 2 sensors are pretty straightforward. as to how you connect it. So there's a slot here, so you can just slot in, interconnect, and then you can connect it to cube servo or a cube joint just like this. Okay. But the head module, you want to use it, there's only one slot here. So how you use it is, you take your interconnect, slide it in here, and then what you normally do is use a U-joint, slide it in like this. So like this, and then you can connect a servo here. First remember to put in the rotatable connect on the opposite side so that it will be more solid. And then just slide it in, following the yellow arrow. So you can have something, so you can let the robot's head move around even though it's connected. Look up, look down. Of course you can use it in a manner where it can turn left and right to look at things. This is how you connect the head module. And finally we have these, what I would call to be more cosmetic parts, because you only use them based on what type of robot you're building. So the first one would be the wheels. So the wheels also have one slot. So let's say you can just connect it to the servo, then you can turn. It's a drive wheel. Or maybe you want it to be a free wheel, then you can just use a rotatable connect. You slide in, then put it into another cube joint, and it will be free to turn. So this is how you use the wheels. Next you have the claws. The claws are really straightforward. There's only one slot, so you can just connect it. Let's say on the servo, then you can move up and down. Maybe like a claw, the dinosaur, or maybe animal, anything. Now lastly, these parts you will use if you build a humanoid robot. These are the foot plates. So one of the ways you can use them is by using them together with the white U-joint. Let's say you slide in the interconnect here, there's a slot. And then slide in the white U-joint. And then you can reuse the axis I showed you before, then you can make a leg, make the foot of the robot that can move up and down and then left and right. So it can move around. Of course, there are other uses for the foot plate, but it's only based on your imagination. Let's say you can use this. This is a smaller version. Maybe you can do like this, move up and down, or even you just connect a cube servo onto it, then you can make it turn left or right, and so on.